A clear distinction is often made between the mind and body based on the premise that they both are fundamentally different in nature. But when considering the mental health and physical health, don't you think that they both are interconnected? Mental health is a sensitive topic as there exists a lot of stigma and discrimination around it. Mental illness is assumed to be like an unwanted thought for some time, which will go away on its own. Emotional pain is not as visible as the physical pain. A cut on a finger will receive more attention than the sudden prolonged silence of a person. But do you know that poor mental health leads to an increased risk of developing physical health problems? And similarly, poor physical health can negatively impact a person's mental health, leading to an increased risk of poor health conditions. Stigma and discrimination can also worsen someone's mental health problems and delay or hinder reaching for help and treatment. According to WHO, 1 in 20 Indians suffer from depression. It has also been found that depression is associated with an increased risk of coronary heart disease. Healthy Minds World brings to you a Sunday webinar series, a series of 5 weeks on decoding mental health disorders to eradicate the stigma and myths on various mental health disorders like depression, suicide, anxiety, bipolar, and many more. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. IST, we will understand one mental health disorder from some of the leading psychologists in country.
Hello everyone, a very good morning to you all. I'm Paridhi and I'm the representative from the team Healthy Minds World. Uh, Before I begin, I would just want to check that I'm audible to everyone. Uh, Perfect. So, a very good morning and wish you all a happy Dashera. Thank you so much for joining the session today. For those who are unaware, today marks the end of our, as you had watched in the video, today is the end of our 5 session long series on decoding various mental health disorders. And over the last 5 Sundays, we have spent time discussing with various experienced as well as we've had interactive discussions with experienced psychologists understanding disorders ranging from depression to anxiety to bipolar, and OCD, phobias, and a lot more. So today we're going to close the series by understanding from a professional's perspective what suicidal thoughts and tendencies are. So before we move on to that, I would quickly want to introduce Healthy Minds World for those of you who are joining us today for the first time. For those of you who have been a part of our journey so far, I would like to thank you all from the entire team's side. We're extremely grateful for your presence because you being present in itself is a huge form of motivation as well as inspiration for us to keep on going when it comes to our vision. So what exactly Healthy Minds World does and how we came about. Um so it was started as an online platform. Healthy Minds World was started by Vivek and Pallav almost I think 7 months now. And it coincides with the time when the lockdown came into effect. So 6, 7 months roughly around that time, and they had been working together on a different business model, and their conversations, around that time, understanding the pandemic, understanding its impact on their professional lives, on their personal fronts, kind of highlighted that at a time like this, conversations about mental health were critical, right? It wasn't easy. We weren't just asked to be physically logged in, but we were also facing different kinds of psychological challenges being logged in psychologically, and something which wasn't really talked about in the initial stages, right? Who would have thought? I mean, even if you were consulting a mental health professional, you had the opportunity of visiting them and speaking to them in person, and the whole scenario kind of really changed, right? I mean, speaking to each other virtually, doing video calls, or just voice calls was something that none of us expected. So the intention was that at a time like this, conversations about positive mental well-being were important. So we didn't just want to be a platform that offered mental health help, but also wanted to take this time as an opportunity to create conversations that would enlighten all of us. So even those who do not belong to the field of psychology, who have not had the chance to understand what positive mental well-being is, what are the various layers of psychological well-being, we wanted to ensure that through creating content in the form of these series, these seminars, these workshops, along with creating blogs and other information on our social media channel, we wanted to essentially use this time to bring about increased awareness. And yes, we will be sharing the links to our previous sessions, to our social media pages, to our website in the chat section below. So please do feel free to check them out. And yes, our journey has been extremely interesting, extremely, I think it's been a great learning experience for all of us. We've grown tremendously from where we were then to under the tremendous guidance of Khushbu, we are now a healthy team of psychologists, senior psychologists, counselors, therapists, as well as marketing professionals. And yes, so I think at this moment I would like to return to the series and the sessions. Also, just before I move on to that, uh, to give you a very brief glimpse of some of the sessions that we've conducted and the workshops that we do hold are from a mixed perspective. So we do offer, informative workshops from purely psychology, from an academic perspective, as well as from an informative as well as engaging perspective as well. So even if you do not belong to the field of psychology, it's crafted in such a manner using simple, easy to understand language as well as terms, so that you do not feel you're you do feel connected and do understand them as well. And some of the workshops that we have uh, held over the last 6 7 months have been on topics ranging from psychoanalytic school of thought to understanding psychotherapy, clinical psychology, forensic psychology, and a lot more. We do have the websites link in the chat section, so please do feel free to check it out. Now, coming back to the series that we started, right? Before I do introduce our speaker for today, I would quickly want to just convey the intention behind holding the series. Right, we had started off with another series as well, where we understood, or at least we tried to understand challenges that women face, uh, especially the way various challenges impact women's mental health. And I think after that, conversations with all of you over our social media pages or on one-on-ones through chats, we realized that when it comes to mental health disorders, I mean, talking about mental health in itself, unfortunately, is still such a huge taboo, right? There's so much of stigma. There are various perspectives, opinions, and some of them are dangerously uninformed as well, right? So we wanted to essentially understand that, since for for anyone, like even for somebody who does not belong or does not come from a field of psychology, they should be in a place to understand what exactly are the various mental health disorders, because we come across various instances in life, right, where people use these terms, sometimes even unintentionally, being unaware of what they mean. So talking about depression, talking about anxiety, panic attacks, talking about obsessive compulsive disorder, right? How many times are opinions passed on these topics, when do they come from a place of complete understanding, of complete research? So with that, we have at least taken the last few weekends some time to decode what exactly are these, what are the symptoms, how does one go about identifying it, approaching professional help, etc. And yes, on that note, coming to the topic for today, we would like to close the session uh, understanding a very sensitive yet extremely important topic, which is suicidal thoughts and behaviors. So today we have with us Dr. Ashma Srivastav, who is going to help us understand the topic better. And before I request Dr. Ashima to join us, I would want to quickly uh, introduce her. So Dr. Ashma is currently a clinical psychologist for children as well as adults, as well as a developmental and behavioral therapist with the Max Super Specialty Hospital in Delhi. Her area of expertise also includes neuropsychology and neuropsychological assessments, developmental disorders, as well as development of therapeutic techniques such as modules for social skills training for children with autism. Uh, Dr. Ashma, very good morning.
Good morning. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Very good morning. I think, okay. Dr. Ashma, is your camera connected?
Yeah, I'll just check. Yeah, I'll just switch it on. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah,
Perfect. Yeah, now it's visible. Thank you so much for joining our session today and taking time out on a Sunday morning to help us understand such a sensitive and critical topic.
thank you so much. I am also feeling very honored to be here amongst all of us to throw light and my expert opinion on views on this topic because this is a very, very sensitive topic. And I think we all need to learn to gain an insight into what suicide is all about and how to elicit the symptoms present amongst teenagers, adults, and elderly population. And it's a very very sensitive topic, and I'm glad that you have invited me for the as a keynote speaker on this such a sensitive topic. And I hope people attending this web series would definitely benefit from that.
Right. Definitely. I think on that note, we can start the session. So for today's session, we have particular questions that we would want to discuss with you to get a better understanding. And as for the participants, it would be extremely helpful if they could drop their queries in the Q&A section below, so that our panelists can then navigate and we can pick them as and when a particular topic is being discussed. Does that work? Okay, perfect. So I think on that note, let's begin today's session, and looking forward to gaining some interesting insights. And yeah, so Dr. Ashma, to start with, I would want to, discuss that when it comes to mental health disorders, right, there are different conditions ranging from bipolar, depression, PTSD, as well as suicidal ideations or tendencies.
Mm.
Now, why are all of these considered as a taboo? And is there any relation or connection between suicide as well as impulsive behavior?
Okay. So, first of all, we all need to understand what is suicide all about when we are talking about this topic. So, basically, suicide it's not a decision which is made in the right frame of mind. It's more of an illusion that people have a choice, especially when they are in a state of depression. That means when they have distorted thinking pattern, they are not able to rationalize their thought process, and for them that seems to be the solution to end to their as an end to their problems. Okay. And this is a very very important and valid question put by you. uh, Not only that these disorders which have been specified by you, they are considered as taboo. However, every mental disorder is considered and seen as taboo amongst people, because people they don't want to accept it that they are in a state of any mental agony, or they are going through any psychiatric illness. They are in the denial phase. Also, they feel that everything is perfect in their life. Uh, so how is it possible that they or their family member could have a mental disorder? In small cities, as compared to the metropolitans, wherein they have a very close network, people in the neighborhood they try to intrude into their personal boundaries, and people there they are more particular and have whole lot of inhibitions in terms of approaching for a professional help when it comes to any psychiatric illness. However, on the contrary, on the other hand, when we talk about the metropolitan cities, people they are more sensitive, they are more they have more lot of awareness about seeking a professional help, and they have a better outlook to reach out for a solution to this there's any mental disorder or any psychiatric problem. So in metropolitans, the taboo has definitely been reduced, but however it is continuously present among in the smaller cities. Also, if we talk about the stigma which is associated with any mental disease or any mental disorder, it was definitely there present or evident in the previous more than last in the last more than last 10 decades. The stigma has also been less severe as it was there when I came into my professional life. The stigma which was associated with the mental health field was quite severe, but over a period of last 20 to 22 years since I have been into this field, I have personally observed that that stigma associated with it has been reduced drastically. And in metropolitan cities, it is quite less. But if we talk about the suburban or remote places or villages, it is still prominently present, and people, they hold a lot of taboo associated with it. And almost all the disorders, they are the suicide, it is quite frequent in many of the disorders. And if we talk about depression or bipolar, it is quite uh, it is suicide rate is highly associated with these disorders. However, it is less associated with psychiatric disorder. To understand suicide, if we talk about it, there are three types when we need to elicit what is suicide ideation all about and what is suicide. And first could be, there are three ways wherein we should elicit whether a person has suicidal thoughts or not. First is eliciting the intent of the suicide. What is the intensity? What are the measures which the person is make availing of to plan for a suicide or attempt a suicide, or uh, planning to commit a suicide? And the other one is that if a person is frustrated with the stresses in their life and not able to handle their issues in an adaptive manner, and their coping mechanisms are very poor, so sometimes out of impulsivity they act onto this particular step, and they are not able to rationalize their thinking. Also, apart from that, many times it's a planned activity. They feel that there is nothing left in their life except for this as the final measure to end to their problems, and they just look out this for a solution. There could be many problems or associated factors like interpersonal issues or any stresses in their personal or social life. In many cases it's planned activity, but even if it is planned or impulsive, patient, they try to convey their feelings to their family members and friends once or more than once, but many a times the family members, they take it lightly. So I would like to add here is that this is the time when you notice that there are indications of a person having suicidal ideation. We all must raise our collar and take it seriously. Okay, and we should not take it lightly, and look out for immediate professional help. And another question put by you, whether it is an impulsive act or not. If we talk about impulsivity, impulsivity would mean that it's a premature response before considering the consequences and ability to inhibit your responses. So, when we are talking about suicide, impulsivity, it basically it facilitates transition from suicidal ideation to attempts. And studies have shown that although people who attempt suicide, they tend to be more impulsive, and actual act of computed suicide cannot be made impulsively. People who tend to attempt have a history of attempting to suicide, they probably do it out of an impulse. However, if it's a complete suicide, it's not possible that a person is acting out or committing suicide out of an impulsive decision. Impulsive suicide attempts, they involve little or no preparation. A person tends to be in a fit of rage or negative mental state, and they do not realize that they are trying to end their life. And also it has been seen that many people, when they are in an intoxicated state, in that state, the if a person is undergoing depression, uh, the feelings of depression, the symptoms of depression, they tend to deepen up more. And in that frame of mind, the person doesn't realize, they just act out impulsively by harming themselves. So we would say that attempting attempt to suicide can be an impulsive act, but complete suicide cannot be an impulsive act.
Yeah. Got it. I think that's your understanding and segregation of the two uh, terms. Moving on, my next question is understanding the role of biological uh, I mean, genetics essentially when it comes to suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Are there any biological reasons that increase the risk of suicide? And can the risk of suicide be also genetic?
Yes, if we talk about any psychiatric illness, they all tend to have a biological basis. And when we talk about the cause of any psychiatric problem, we begin with the biopsychosocial causes, that is the biopsychosocial model, which plays an important role whenever we are eliciting the causes behind any illness. So similarly, it applies to suicidal thoughts and ideations also. The biological cause that comes at the top, and the psychosocial causes, they follow the biological causes. And there are many neurotransmitters. When a person who is committing suicide or who's trying to attempt suicide, it's very important for all of us to understand that probably he is going through some negative mental state wherein he's not able to rationalize their thinking pattern, and they have a very distorted cognitive content, right? Their cognitions are quite distorted, and they are not able to take healthy decisions, and they are not able to have a adaptive, problem solving skills and good adaptive coping mechanisms. So it's very important that when a person is undergoing any negative mental state, there are certain, and a person, if he tends to have suicidal thoughts or ideas, there are certain neurotransmitters which plays very important role in governing our behavior, or in governing our emotional outburst, or in governing our anxiety. So these neurotransmitters, they have got a direct link, and these are the few neurotransmitters like serotonin or norepinephrine. They are prominently present in people suffering from depression or bipolar disorder. And when they are secreted in low amount, they might lead to onset of suicidal thoughts. Definitely, biological causes, if we talk about the biological cause, the neurotransmitters, they play a very important role. And if a person is having a low serotonin level, that is probably indicative of a symptom of depression, but that is not the cardinal symptom of depression. When we talk about the cardinal symptoms of depression, that would include decreased energy, and persistently and pervasively, the patient tends to have low mood, and decreased and loss interest, or loss of interest in routine household activities which the patient used to enjoy. So these are the cardinal symptoms which are prominently associated with depression. Apart from that, uh, the suicidal thoughts and ideations which a depressive person tends to have, they are additional associated symptoms when we talk about a depressive phase. But yes, every psychiatric disorder has a genetic basis. When history of suicide is present in family, there is a high amount of possibility that suicide might take place in the generations, but we cannot say that genetic link is 100%. In many families, it has been observed, in many cases it has been observed that, the as per the social learning theory, when we observe the behavior of others around us, we tend to acquire some behavior from them. So it is also not only the genetic factor which can be reasoned out, that yes, if it is there in the family, the generations to come in that family will definitely have a history of suicidal attempt or commit suicide. It also, apart from that, the important factor which plays a very important role is, if there is a poor role model in the family who has been exhibiting negative behavior patterns, and who has been adapting to self-harming tendencies in front of their kids. So if there are three kids in the family, so out of those three, one might acquire that negative behavior through poor role model. So that can also be a very important factor which we must take into consideration. Yes, genetic factors are definitely associated, but we cannot say that it's 100% linked.
Right. I think that an interesting point, as well as some of the symptoms that you've highlighted. I think we've had questions regarding that as well. That signs that one should look out for in people around them. Talking about the causes when it comes to suicide, how do you think, or do you think our phobias, can they be interpreted as a cause that can push someone towards suicide?
Uh, yes, phobias can definitely push a person towards, suicide. But I would like to add here is that it's not very prominently present, uh, you know, among the adults. It's more, amongst more prominently observed amongst children or teenagers, and also probably children who are in the early, ages of their childhood, like 5 to 8 years or less than 10 years of age. And they can definitely push a person towards suicide, but it's not very, very common until the phobia is very severe and the age group is below 10 to 15 years. It might be possible that phobia might push a child towards attempting or committing suicide. But sometimes, if the child is so terrified and unable to cope up with the phobia or the fears associated with that, they may be encountering phobia so frequently in their life that they may be uh, choosing suicide as an escaping mechanism to, come out of their fearful situation. But normally in adult age group, this phobia is not too high in comparison to depression, which is likely to be the major cause of suicide amongst the adults. Also, many a times, if a child has, for example, if a child has examination fear or examination anxiety, due to which he is constantly feeling anxious, they sometimes are unable to cope up with the academic burden and tend to develop a negative mental state, which can be quite detrimental to their uh, mental health, as they might start feeling depressed or negative and might feel that they do not have adaptive mechanisms to cope up with their current stressful situation, and they might look out for suicide as a solution, permanent solution to their problem. So if we talk about the phobias, yes, if we talk about the examination fear among kids, that's a very, very important factor or a cause which is prominently present among children. But I would say that phobia is more directly related to onset of suicidal thoughts amongst children as compared to adults, wherein depression is the major factor which leads to onset of suicidal thoughts amongst adults.
Right. Noted. I think talking about given that we've started talking, we've identified this aspect pertaining to children. Could you highlight what are some of the signs that one can use to identify if a child is suffering from depression or is having suicidal thoughts?
Okay. So when we are talking about suicidal thoughts present among children, the presentation of suicidal thoughts among kids is very different as compared to the adult age group. Adults, they tend to directly communicate their feelings of sadness. They have negative thought process or loss of interest and energy is decreased energy is present, and they might have biological functioning which is quite disturbed. But when it comes to the children, the presentation of the symptoms is very different. Children, they tend to present with, you know, a pain symptom, a physical symptom, not a psychological symptom. If we talk about kids between 5 to 8 years of age, a child has some fear or has some anxiety but is not able to use the appropriate terminology to communicate his feelings, so the child might exhibit symptoms of, pain abdomen or stomach ache. There might be some noticeable changes in the behavior of the child. The child might feel so clingy to the parents, might tend to feel anxious, nervous, loss of appetite, and sleep cycle is quite disturbed among kids, and they might uh, have exhibition of a symptom wherein they might refuse to go to school out of the fear of something wrong going to happen with them. So this might be the presentation amongst the kids. If we talk about 8 to 11 years old of children or above 10 years, they are able to communicate their feelings that they are not feeling good, but there are very vague symptoms which are present. It's not that they have core psychological symptoms which are easy to elicit. They present with very vague symptoms wherein they might say that they are not feeling good. So, on probing further, feeling good would mean they would repeat with the same symptom that they are having pain in the headache, they are having headache or pain in the stomach or pain in the legs or in their body. So, but there are certain diagnostic tools through which we can identify and assess symptoms of depression when it comes to children. Suicide, they do not children who fall in the age group of 7 to 8 to 9 years, they are not able to communicate or convey that they are feeling sad, or they are not able to understand what exactly they are feeling. Only they would say repetitively on probing further, they would say that they are not feeling good. And many a times parents, they keep consulting a pediatrician, and they also get confused with the physical symptoms. They try to continue with the treatment which is being given for the physical symptoms. Many times the underlying psychological symptoms are missed out. So I would like to add here is that parents need to be very, very insightful when it comes to their kids. If they observe different changes in the behavior of their kids, it's very, very important for them to take stringent measures. And also there are other factors which could be associated, which might range from hostility to negative self concepts, feeling of isolation or hopelessness. Without strong support system, many kids tend to feel negative. They feel that their coping mechanisms and skills are very poor, and they if a child is having a poor sense of self-worth, so he might develop pain psychological pain, which might lead to suicidal thoughts. So in those kids probably falling in the teenage, these kids, they might feel might have a sense of poor self-worth, or they don't have strong support system, so they might present with a uh, symptom of psychological pain, which might lead to onset of suicidal thoughts and feelings. So those feelings can grow into a thought of hurting themselves, which can lead to a plan to commit suicide. So, as a person grows from one stage to the next, like a Richter scale, with the second step being 10 times more serious than the first, and third step 100 times more serious than the second one. So, we all must remember that if teenager is in intense emotional state or physical pain, his judgment is usually clouded by that pain. So they are not able to take corrective decisions. So we all must, as parents, look out for constant feelings of sad mood in the child, sleeplessness, sleepiness, loss of energy, whether the child has been having irritable mood or mood swings or anger or loss of interest in the routine household chores. So these are the symptoms which are prominently present in kids. It's better we should address to those issues, give a listening ear to your child, communicate to your child, give hope to your child, and acknowledge their feelings, reflect on their feelings, and by empathizing them and by reflecting to them their feelings, that we are able to understand how they and what they are going through. And in the end, I would like to add that if parents, they feel that it's there is a serious indication of a child wherein there is a threat to the child's life, parents should not delay. They should immediately take corrective measures to seek a professional help before it is too late.
I think it's very helpful, especially for those looking to understand support, regarding children. On that note, Dr. Ashma, I have a few questions from the participants pertaining to understanding, extending help, or how to, support someone if we know that they're going through a rough patch, or if we know that someone close to us is having suicidal thoughts, or is uh, basically expressing suicidal tendencies. So how can one make them speak, or how can one ensure that they're able to express it? I mean, what exactly would your suggestion be, that how can we help someone who's going through a rough patch like that?
The first and the foremost step from our side should be that we should be communicating a message to the person that they are not alone. They have a very good and strong support system, and we are there to help them out, and we are able to acknowledge what they are going through, and we are able to empathize the psychological pain they are going through. So this is the first step which needs to be communicated to them. And also, when a person is in a state of negative state, and as I mentioned before also, that person is not able to, is they have a clouded, uh, feeling of, not able to think rationally. So their decisions are not rational whenever they and tend to end up their life. So we have to help them understand that uh, this is not the only solution to their problem. There are other alternative measures which can be adapted to and to put an end to their problems. So suicide is definitely preventable, and when a person is trying to commit suicide, or he is in a negative emotional state, he is not able to think rationally. So we must communicate them that uh, their decision making is poor at that point of time. They are not able to think rationally, and we must sit with that person. We must try to communicate with that person. Uh, we should not ask lots of question, put lots of question to that person. Rather, we should give a listening ear to that person so that they are able to vent out. Many a times, a person is not comfortable in venting out their feelings. They are more comfortable in expressing through writing, or there are certain chat bots which are available, like there are certain like for example in artificial intelligence, they have chatbots wherein person who is very shy in terms of communicating their feelings, they try to express their feelings by writing, where they don't feel a fear of being judged. Okay, so that is also an important very good technique and measure which can be adapted to. uh, we also need to inculcate a positive hope, make the person understand that this issue is not endless, it will definitely end in a while, and he must adapt to those resources which can help to work out with their problems. And family support is very very important. If a family members are supportive and the support system is strong enough, the person can adapt to a lot of help from the family members, wherein they can use adaptive strategies with the help of the support system which is being provided to them, which can definitely help them to look out for a solution to their problem. If the family members they feel that the situation is beyond their management, then they must ensure that they approach a therapist, wherein therapeutic sessions they are very scientific and structured, and they address to the uh, precipitating factors which are playing an important role behind the negative mental state, and by eliciting the factors which are contributing to the current mental state. So I think lot of confidence and feeling of hopefulness should be inculcated by the family members or the friends or a person with whom the person is very comfortable.
Those are some important points that, given that there have been several questions regarding this that all of us can take into consideration, especially I think again highlighting the support of close friends as well as family, and definitely again highlighting the need of seeking professional help. I think we can never overemphasize on that yes, do confide in near and dear ones, but ultimately do not hesitate. You have to cross that stigma of seeking professional help in the end. Right, I think on that note, then moving, we have another question. I think another interesting question talking about gender play when it comes to suicidal behaviors, suicidal tendencies and behavior. So if we look at the statistics, depression seems to be higher among women, but when we look at the suicide numbers in real, it seems to be higher for men. So what are your thoughts on that? How does gender play a role in this regard?
So definitely depression is more higher in women, but suicide is more in amongst men. However, the gender that definitely would play an important role by explaining the aspect to understand, to answer to this question. The aspect would be like, as I have already briefed, is the concept of attempted suicide and committed suicide. So attempted suicide, it is more common amongst women, and completed suicide, it is more common amongst men, because uh, females, they are more expressive. Many of them, they try to look out for a lot of attention from their family members, so in order to fulfill their underlying psychological needs or underlying emotional needs, they look out for this particular strategy to provide self harm to themselves. And however, if we talk about the male population, they have a tendency to bottle up their emotions. They are not expressive. So, in amongst this population, the committed suicide rate is more high, and role of gender is very important here, because of the reason is that if the person has broken marriage, or has a single status, or has financial issues, or the family dynamic is not congenial, and there are other contributing factors, so attempted suicide is going to be more amongst women, but completed suicide is more going to be more amongst men. And also it is very important for us to understand that there is more substance and alcohol used amongst male population, and when they try to get onto the drinking behavior, they, in a state of intoxication, if a person is already depressed and in an intoxicated state, the person might feel, might have deepened depression, and out of that, the impulsive behavior, out of an impulsive behavior, they might try to commit suicide. So whenever, also whenever um, there is a downturn in the economic, in terms of the economic crisis, it results in increased in the unemployment amongst many people, and there tends to be increase in the suicide. And uh, amongst male population, if we feel, They are considered to be the main bread and butter earner of the family, and if they tend to face, economic crisis, they try to feel very low and negative about their capabilities, and they begin to question their identity, and they tend to have identity crisis also, in terms of not being able to live up to their expectations, wherein they have to run their family, and they look out themselves as big failure in their life, and wherein they look out for suicide as the final option. Also fitting into gender roles of being strong or financially, secure in the family, and also the societal pressure can also increase the thoughts of suicide among male population. So I think these are the only reasons which could be taken into consideration if we are trying to answer to this question when we talk about the gender, the identity crisis, or the fitting into the uh, gender roles of being strong and influential member of the family, wherein they tend to feel financial stability with regards to them. So these are good factors which can explain the concept of gender. But yes, I would like to conclude this question by repeating this statement again, that attempted suicide is more among women because they of other, factors present in the psychosocial factors in their present in their life. But committed suicide is more prominently present among men because of the fact that they try to bottle up their emotions, and they are less expressive.
Right. That's very important point to note, especially I think then understanding that it is problematic, especially in the case of men where uh, the case where they're not able to confide in people, or they're not able to openly express or talk about their feelings. uh, so as we were talking about seeking help, or if we know of someone, or if we ourselves are going through a rough patch, uh, what would your thoughts be in terms of choosing between confiding in someone over seeking professional help?
Okay. So there are two options. I would like to answer to this question with from two perspectives. Some people, they have a very introvert personality. Some people are very extrovert. So those who are very introvert, for them to open up with their closed near and dear ones will be a challenge. So it's always better if the person is not comfortable in opening up with the near and dear ones, and not comfortable in confiding their feelings in someone. It's always better, the family members should encourage that they should go for a professional help from a mental health professional, because uh, there the approach is going to be quite scientific in nature, and the therapist or a psychiatrist, they are going to address to the issues in a very scientific and in structured manner. However, on the other hand, if a person is very extrovert, and if family members are able to feel that the person is very had always been very jovial, and was always happy go lucky type, but suddenly the family members, they have been feeling certain changes, drastic changes in the mood and the behavior of the family members, they must ensure that they must approach their family member, try to elicit what is the underlying reason behind their current psyche, and what could be the risk factors which could be associated in terms of contributing towards the current mental and emotional state. And they must facilitate a process wherein the person is able to express and confide in their feelings in their family members, wherein they are able to get a rational perspective towards their current thinking pattern and current approach in life, wherein they are feeling negative. Once they try to confide in their feelings with their family members or closed friends, they are definitely likely to benefit from that by having a different outlook towards their problem, and also by having an uh, option of availing the benefit of alternative approaches to look out for a solution to their problem. So confiding in feelings would be better with a person who is little expressive in nature and outgoing. But for a person who is quite introvert and is not very outgoing, for them it is very important that family members should facilitate that and encourage a person to seek for a professional help.
Right. That's a structured and good input for all of us. Moving on, I think we spent a lot of time discussing, youngsters or how to tackle, suicidal thoughts in children and majorly adults. But speaking about senior citizens, can you throw some light on palliative care and, how it can help reduce suicidal thoughts amongst the elderly group?
First of all, it is very important for the audience to understand what is palliative care all about. I don't think that many of them would be familiar with it, with this terminology. So, when we talk about this term, palliative care would mean this is an approach that tends to improve the overall quality of life of the patient and their associated family members when they are going through a very tough phase out of different issues and problems cropping in out of a terminal illness. So palliative care would mean when you are looking forward to taking care of a person being confined to home and wherein the burden of the family members and the associated pain of the patient is being taken care of when he's suffering from any terminal illness. So it involves providing relief of the suffering of the illness behavior by early identification and alleviation of the physical and psychological distress associated with the illness of the client. And to reduce suicidal thoughts among this population, we must assess for the pain and the physical symptoms if they are present in the patient, whether the patient is depressed or anxious or feeling of becoming a burden to the family. Because if we talk about this age group, they feel that they have completely become dependent on their family members and they are a big burden to their family members. So it is very important we have to assess for that if there is a feeling in that person regarding the burden to the family. And we also need to elicit the patient's current support system and history of any psychiatric disorder. So by alleviating the patient's pain, degree of suicide ideation can be reduced to great extent. So it's very important that we must take and ensure all the measures wherein we are able to alleviate the pain of the client associated with the terminal illness through which they are going, because that is likely to show good amount of improvement in terms of reduction of the associated suicidal thoughts with out of the illness behavior. And patients in this age, they not only deal with the pain but with the anxiety of dying or the facing the uncertainty in life. They have lot of feelings of anxiety and whole lot of apprehensions with regard to uncertainty related to their life. So they have lot of negativity, anxiety. They feel that they are not able to move. They are completely immobile or completely, dependent on their family members. So all these thoughts collectively they inculcate a lot of feeling of negativity in the client. And once this continues for a period of time, that might lead to uh, onset of depressive symptoms. So here are certain strategies and solutions in order to deal with the negative state. So when we talk about the palliative care with regard to the elderly population, the best approach to deal with their negativity is reminiscence therapy. So, what is reminiscence therapy all about? Basically, in reminiscence therapy, this is basically a therapeutic module which is popularly used with elderly population, wherein we facilitate talking to them, because elderly people, they would enjoy talking to others about their past events in their life, like starting from 25 years of age till now 75 of years of age. So what all they had seen in their life, and we might uh, make use of different aids like their old pictures, old photographs, old materials in the house like a radio, a transistor, you know. So any gift which was given to them 50 years back by their wife or by their spouse when they met for the first time. So we can refer to those things and explore further, talk to them, encourage them to narrate their stories. So these uh, aids can be quite motivating and mood elevating for them, which can bring a smile, big smile on their face and inculcate a feeling of happiness. So reminiscence therapy can be quite fruitful in dealing with this elderly age group when we talk about the palliative care. So out of uh, the uh, the pain and the psychological pain which is being associated with regard to their illness, that can definitely be dealt with by talking to them, by making use of all those, like for example, we may ask them, right from 35 to 45 years of age, just recall every year one important blessing in your life, or when one important memorable event in their life. So once you ask them to brainstorm their, themselves with regard to every possible good moment in their life per year, so that might bring some amount of, happiness in them. And from there, the hopefulness tend to build up, and they start feeling more courageous, more motivated to cope up with the current illness behavior.
Right. I think Dr. Ashma, we're inching towards the closing time, so we're just going to quickly go over a last set of questions. First, we have a question from a participant who is concerned that there's someone who is already diagnosed with depression and is already taking therapy, but still, you know, but still that person keeps talking about. I mean, still that person keeps talking about suicide. So, what should one do in such a case?
So in that scenario, they must already, if they are seeking a professional help, they must uh, the family members must ensure that the patient is not left alone by his own self or herself, and the family members should be available to the patient, uh, wherein they can extend the message to the patient that they have a strong support system wherein they are able to fight this illness not by their own self. We all in the family are there to fight through this tough phase. This is a battle. We all will come over with flying colors, right? So that feeling of hopefulness should be inculcated and communicated to the client. It is also very important that we must facilitate a process wherein the patient tends to express his feelings constantly. If he's able to express his feelings constantly and very clearly, that will definitely help us gain a good amount of deep insight into the psyche of the client, so that we are able to help the client to uh, look out for the measures wherein he is able to think from a rational perspective. And however, if the symptoms still continues and they persist for long, And if we are able to see no change in the behavior of the client or intensity of the suicidal ideations is not reduced, then it is very important we must seek a professional help from a psychiatrist, wherein we must extend you know support and help to our patient by approaching a mental health professional, wherein they might uh, put them on medication. Because when you are in a state of negativity, as I've already mentioned, that there are low serotonin level, so which might inculcate a feeling of suicide. So it is very important that at this point of time you must seek a professional help from a psychiatrist, so that they are able to treat the patient through medication. That can also be quite helpful apart from the therapies which are continuously going on.
Okay. Quickly moving on to another question. Again, going back to our conversations about children and cases of suicidal thoughts. So every year we notice that several children commit suicide due to examination fear. Uh, so looking at that, how can we help a child in overcoming this fear and reduce the chances of committing suicide?
When we talk about uh, any history of a child having suicidal thoughts out of examination fear, we all as parents need to understand that it's not only the child who is responsible, and it is not only the studies and the academic burden which is playing an important role behind this. Not at all. It is our parenting which is playing a very important role. Many a times we as parents we tend to forget that some uh, indirectly or directly we may or may not acknowledge and accept the fact that we don't have any expectation from our child. But if a child is off the track, our approach in approaching a child to get into the books is very, very different. Sometimes we make use of blunt statements. Sometimes we give examples of, other kids, about their success stories. Sometimes we tend to relate or compare our make comparisons between our own child and other kids. So it is very important. Somewhere we as parents we must need to understand that these comparisons, over expectations, talking to your child, wherein indirectly you are communicating a message that you expect a good result, a high score, that should be addressed properly and kept in mind when you are communicating to your child. If you are able to see that your child is already anxious and is not able to figure out his anxiety in an adaptive manner, it is our duty as parent that we approach them very nicely, wherein children get a message from us as parents that yes, we are there for them in in the crisis situation also. We do not want that they should be just studying at the cost of their mental health. Okay, this is number one. Another important point, when examination fear is there, yes, children they tend to feel negative. What children should be doing is that children should figure out a solution wherein they are able to deal with their academic burden. If you're not able to if you're not able to cover up a long, heavy curriculum, it is very important that you break it into small, achievable goals. If you are able to, when you receive some things that they are very large, and very tough for you to go through, so it is very important that you break them into small, achievable steps. So that thing will start being perceived by you as uh, smaller content for you to finish off with it. So that will give you confidence. And once you are confident, you will be able to acquire a lot of information and speed up with your, speed of preparation. And also it is very important that when you are feeling anxious, it is very important that you must take frequent breaks in between your study routine, because frequent breaks will help you elevate your mood and make you feel fresh. It is advisable that you should not be studying for long hours, like for 3 to 4 hours at a stretch. It is always advisable you study for 45 minutes, take a break for 5 minutes in between, 5 to 10 minutes, then again have a stretch for 45 minutes, then again take a break of 10 to 15 minutes, then go on to the next third stretch, then after that take a break of half an hour. And during these breaks you should not be involved in any mental exercises wherein you are watching TV or a video. You should be taking these breaks to regain your attention span for the next stretch of 45 minutes. So if you are able to take breaks and regain your attention and concentration, that will definitely make you feel smoother with the process of your study routine. And still, if you feel anxious, it is very important you involve in few exercises wherein you could involve in deep breathing exercise for 5 minutes. That will help you to lower down your anxiety. You could make use of positive affirmations to yourself, like, for example, I know this is tough, but I am confident I'll be able to do it. So, practicing positive affirmations will help you become positive and will facilitate a process wherein you perceive you're able to perceive your examination without any fear. And very important point is, whenever you are going to take an exam in an examination hall, please do not discuss your previous exam with your peer group. That will automatically inculcate a lot of anxiety in you. So it's highly advisable discussing previous examination or observing the behavior of other peer group while taking an examination can also make you feel anxious. So just concentrate on your own self and just follow with the routine of studies and taking an exam. Everything will be very, very smooth.
Right. That's a wonderful response. Moving on to the last question, can you throw some light on what exactly are the treatment patterns used to diagnose suicidal thoughts and tendencies?
Okay, so coming to this, when we are talking about different methods which can be used to diagnose suicidal thoughts, that will involve a process which is known as suicidal assessment. So whenever we are dealing with diagnosis suicidal thoughts, we need to identify the factors which may or may not increase or decrease the risk of suicide, and also address the safety measure of the client immediately, whatsoever are the safety measures which are prevailing in the environment. And there are certain domains of suicide assessment which are involved. We have to assess the patient on those domains. So those domains could be the current presentation of the symptoms of the client, his strengths and weaknesses, and the psychosocial situations and the stressors present in the environment of the client. And also, apart from that, uh, the support system of the client. What is the support system of the client? So, we must focus on, when we are talking about identification of the suicidal thoughts, we must focus on the nature of the thoughts. What are the frequency of the thoughts? How frequently these thoughts are coming? What is the depth of these thoughts? What is the intention of these thoughts? And what is the persistence level of suicidal ideation? Whether they are coming into the mind of the patient persistently or sometimes. Okay, so these are very, very important indicators on which we must evaluate the client. And if ideation is present in any person, we must explore whether the person has made any plans for suicide or any steps have been taken to enact that plan. So that is also very, very important for us to understand. So if we are able to address to these things and assess them thoroughly, it is very, very, it would be very convenient for us to elicit a good response in terms of the treatment outcome. Proper mental state examination of the client is very important, wherein we evaluate what is the current mental state and whether this person has got a particular disorder with suicidal ideation or not, whether it is just an impulsive act or whether the patient is doing it because he is going this suicide is an associated symptom because of depressive phase. So that also needs to be elicited. So when a client, if we feel that if a person is presenting with suicidal ideation, the approach which should be used is not putting direct questions to the person. The person might feel very defensive and might not open up. So it's very important that the choice of questions should be very, very proper. Like, for example, we might ask questions that address patient's feelings about living his life, like, how does life seem to you at this point of time? Or have you ever felt that life is not worth living? Have you ever have had a thought when you were going to sleep that you might not wake up? Okay, so these non-directive questions will give you an insight into uh, the ideations of suicide present in a person. And if the patient denies that he is not having these thoughts, then you may ask indirectly the plans for the future. What are you planning to do in the future, and whether there have been any recent thoughts of self harm? So these questions, putting these questions, will give can give us a good insight into as to what and how the patient is feeling and what is the intensity of the suicidal thoughts. So this can be the good approach in eliciting the suicidal ideations in any person.
I think that's extremely compact and easy to understand approach, especially how you've structured it. Uh, it has been great. On that note, I think we've also crossed the time. So I think just to wrap up, we've had an extremely enlightening session understanding suicidal thoughts and tendencies, and especially patterns with respect to personalities, and how one should approach if we observe this some of the signs and symptoms that Dr. Ashma has mentioned. And definitely whether confiding in near and dear ones, or seeking professional help, uh, talking to a counselor or therapist is extremely important. On that note, I think we have, since today marks the end of our you know 5 session long series on understanding mental health disorders, we have a video that we would want to play for you all. Can I request the team to uh, play it? Okay, so I think there was just a small thank you video. On that note, we would like to take your leave. Thank you, Dr. Ashma, for taking your time out, and sorry for taking some extra time as well. But we've had a great session. So yes, on that note, I would like to thank you from the entire team for helping us understand suicidal thoughts from a professional perspective.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks everyone. We will see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining our session today. Have a nice Sunday. Bye bye.